In the heart of Neon District 9, where the skyscrapers looked like fangs biting into a blood-red sky, the night never truly slept. The rain came down in sheets of light, holographic billboards refracting through every droplet, painting the streets in violet and crimson. The air hummed with hover cars and the low throb of distant techno. But beneath it all was something older, something that didn't belong to circuitry and chrome. Something hungry. Alex Monroe stepped out of his mag cab and adjusted his jacket collar, pretending not to notice the mist that coiled around his boots like fingers. He wasn't a man who usually went on blind dates, much less with a woman who'd sent him a message that began with, "Do you fear the dark?" But the way she'd worded it, half challenge, half invitation, had made him grin like a fool. He wasn't afraid of the dark, not in a city where light ruled everything. He walked into the restaurant, a converted cathedral now glowing with neon crosses and floating menus. The host robot greeted him with a static smile. "Reservation for Alex Monroe?" "That's me. Your companion has already arrived. Booth 13, booth 13. Of course. When Alex reached it, he almost turned around and left. She was there, sitting in a pool of ultraviolet light that made her pale skin gleam like moonlit marble. Her dress shimmered between black and blood red like liquid night. She didn't move when he approached, just looked up slowly, with eyes the color of garnet and a smile that seemed to know too much. "You came," she said, voice low and melodic, the kind that made the world sound quieter just to hear it. "I said I would." He sat opposite her, trying not to stare too hard, but everything about her demanded attention. "So, you're Mara?" "Mara Valen." She rested her chin on her hand. "And you're either very brave or very stupid. Depends on the day," he said, forcing a laugh. "Today I'd say I'm both." Her smile deepened. "I like both." The waiter bot slid in, offering them crimson drinks that shimmered like molten rubies. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Wine?" "Something stronger," Mara said, her tone teasing but not joking. "Don't worry. It's vintage." He took a sip. It was sweet, too sweet, but it warmed his veins instantly like swallowing sunlight. They talked. About small things at first. Music, the city, the absurdity of dating apps in an age where AI could match soul frequencies. But every word felt like it had double meaning, every glance like a test. Mara spoke like she was remembering centuries instead of years. Her humor was dark, dry, and wickedly charming. By the time the restaurant dimmed for moon hour, Alex realized he hadn't stopped smiling once. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "Would you like to see where I live?" Most people would have hesitated. Alex didn't. Something in her voice was irresistible, like the promise of a secret the world wasn't meant to know. Outside, the rain had turned silver. They walked down empty streets lined with flickering signs in forgotten languages. Drones buzzed overhead, projecting advertisements for synthetic blood and immortality serums. The city had its monsters, but tonight, Alex felt like he was walking beside the queen of them. Mara's building stood apart from the rest, a towering relic of the old world, its stone walls wrapped in glass and ivy. The elevator groaned as it rose, the lights flickering as if nervous. When the doors opened, the air changed. Her apartment was nothing like the outside world. No neon, no tech, just candlelight, velvet drapes, and the faint scent of roses and iron. Paintings covered the walls, some centuries old, others painted by her own hand. "This is..." Alex struggled for words. "Beautiful. It's home," she said, removing her gloves. Her skin was flawless, but colder than marble. "You have that look humans get when they walk into something they don't understand." "I'm just surprised." "Surprised you're not dead yet?" she asked casually. He froze. She smiled. "Relax, Alex, I'm joking, mostly." He laughed nervously, unsure if she was teasing. She walked toward him, slow, deliberate. "Tell me," she whispered, circling him like a cat. "Why did you swipe right on me?" He turned slightly to follow her movement. "Because you seemed different." "Different," she echoed. "That's one way to put it." Then she stopped in front of him, so close he could see his reflection in her eyes. "Most men run when they learn what I am. But you..." She brushed a finger along his jaw. "You're curious. I like mysteries. And what if this mystery bites?" He met her gaze. "Then I guess I'll find out how sharp the teeth are." For a heartbeat, silence. Then she laughed. A real laugh this time. Soft, musical, dangerous. "You're either very brave, Alex Monroe," she said, "or very doomed." She kissed him. It was like touching ice and fire at once. His body responded before his mind could think. For a second, he felt her teeth brush his lip. Not enough to draw blood, but enough to promise she could. When she pulled back, her eyes glowed faintly. "You taste alive. You're full of compliments." "Come," she said, taking his hand. "There's something I want to show you." She led him down a corridor lit only by candles. The walls grew colder, older, stone replacing glass. They descended a spiral staircase into a hidden chamber beneath the apartment. The room was circular, filled with ancient symbols and velvet-lined walls. And at its center, a coffin, sleek, black, adorned with silver engravings that pulsed faintly in the candlelight. "Is that—" "My bed," she said simply. "You're serious." "Always." She turned to face him. "I sleep during the day. The world above is too loud, too bright. Down here time stops." He stepped closer, fascinated. "And you just close yourself in?" She nodded. "Would you like to see what it feels like?" The question caught him off guard. "You're inviting me? Into your coffin?" "Into my world." Her tone carried something else now, an intimacy he hadn't earned but desperately wanted to. Without thinking too much, Alex nodded. "All right. Show me." Mara smiled, slow and predatory. Brave to the end, she lifted the lid and gestured. Inside the coffin wasn't what he expected. It wasn't morbid at all. It was lined with soft crimson fabric, perfumed faintly of rose and smoke. It looked comfortable, too comfortable. He hesitated, then stepped inside. The air was cool and still, and when she leaned over him, her silhouette framed in candlelight, he realized he was holding his breath. She whispered something he didn't understand, an old tongue, smooth and dark like spilled ink. Then she lowered the lid halfway, her face the last thing he saw. "Sleep well, my foolish mortal," she said, smiling. "If you wake up craving the night, don't say I didn't warn you." The lid closed. Darkness enveloped him, and for the first time in years, Alex didn't feel afraid. He felt peaceful. Above, Mara sat on the coffin's edge, listening to his heartbeat slow, her own lips curving into something between affection and hunger. Outside, the city lights flickered, and somewhere far above, the moon blinked out behind the neon haze. The night had claimed another secret. For a moment there was nothing, just stillness, soft, endless, and strangely comforting. Alex didn't know if he was asleep, dreaming, or caught somewhere in between. The air was cool and faintly sweet, like roses mixed with static electricity. Then slowly he became aware of the faint rhythm that pulsed around him, his own heartbeat echoing back, magnified by the enclosed walls of the coffin. His eyes opened to total darkness. It wasn't the ordinary kind, the kind that lets you see shadows or shapes. This darkness had weight. It pressed against his skin, whispered in his ears, and somehow watched him. He tried to move his hand. The surface above him was smooth and soft, but there was no handle, no light. A rational mind would have panicked, would have screamed or thrashed, but Alex didn't. Instead, a calmness settled in his chest. A strange liquid calm, as if part of him already belonged there. "Mara?" he whispered. Silence, then a faint hum. It wasn't her voice, but something else. The coffin's inner walls glowed faintly with red lines, symbols that had been invisible before. They pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Then, to his astonishment, the darkness responded. The hum deepened, vibrating through his ribs. He felt something slide under his skin, a warmth blooming at his throat, behind his eyes, in his veins. He gasped, half fear, half ecstasy. The lid creaked open. Cold air rushed in, filled with the scent of rain and candle smoke. Above him, Mara leaned over the coffin, her eyes glowing like embers. "You lasted longer than most," she murmured, touching his cheek. "You didn't panic. That's impressive." Alex sat up slowly, blinking as his vision adjusted. The candles still burned low around the chamber, but everything looked sharper, clearer. He could see dust motes dancing in the air, could hear the soft drip of water somewhere deep within the walls. "How long was I?" "Just a few hours." Her smile was faint, unreadable. Though for the coffin, time doesn't behave like the surface world. It slows, stretches, until you start hearing things that aren't meant for human ears. He stared at her. "You mean I hallucinated?" She shook her head gently. "No, you heard the silence. That's rarer." He rubbed his eyes, trying to steady himself. "So this is your idea of a date?" "Dinner, conversation, a little light resurrection." Her lips curved. I'd call it successful. He couldn't help but laugh, nervous but genuine. You're insane. Darling, she said, standing gracefully. You're the one who climbed into a coffin. He had no argument for that. Mara crossed the chamber, her bare feet silent on the stone floor. She reached for a switch embedded in the wall, and as she flipped it, the candles dimmed, and panels hidden in the ceiling slid open to reveal glass windows showing the world above. The skyline of Neon District 9 shimmered in perpetual twilight. Hover cars streaked through the sky like fireflies. From this depth, the city looked almost alive, breathing, pulsing, dreaming. Alex stood beside her, mesmerized. You have a view of the city from your crypt. I built this place before the city built its towers, she said softly. They just grew around me. He turned to her. You mean this was your home even before the neon age? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up a small silver locket from a table, flipping it open. Inside was a tiny photo, an old black and white image of a girl who looked exactly like her, standing beside a horse-drawn carriage. I was born when the world still had night, she said at last. When people feared the dark because it was full of teeth, then they invented light strong enough to kill shadows. They thought they'd conquered fear. But fear, she looked at him, doesn't die. It just hides in brighter places. Her voice carried centuries. He felt it deep in his chest, so why stay here? He asked quietly. Why not leave the city? She smiled faintly. Because I like the hum of life above me. The irony that humans built towers to reach heaven but ended up living in something closer to hell. I feed on their noise. It keeps me connected. Alex studied her face. There was no sadness there, only a strange nostalgia, a memory of a world long gone. Then she looked back at him, eyes narrowing slightly. You still don't understand, do you? Understand what? What that coffin does, he frowned. Other than giving me the best nap of my life? She stepped closer. It doesn't just hold bodies, Alex, it reads them. When you lay inside it, it learned you. Every pulse, every molecule of blood, every secret your cells tried to keep. That's why you can see the world more sharply now. Why your heart doesn't race when I move too close, he blinked. Wait, are you saying it changed me? Not entirely. Not yet. She traced a finger along his wrist, but it left its mark. You'll feel it soon, he swallowed hard. What happens if I do? She smiled, slow and dangerous. Then you'll start craving what I crave. Before he could respond, the lights in the chamber flickered. Mara's expression darkened instantly. What's wrong? She tilted her head, listening. Someone's here. Alex turned toward the elevator shaft, but instead of mechanical noise, there was a faint sound, like static whispers and electric wings. Who? Her eyes flared crimson. Hunters, he froze. Vampire hunters? Not exactly. She moved fast, pulling him toward the corner. They call themselves purifiers now. Half-machine zealots who think they're saving humanity by erasing anything non-human. They've been tracking me for months. Why? Because I don't hide. And because I refuse to drink synthetic blood. He stared at her, speechless. The elevator above groaned. Shadows moved through the slats, tall figures with glowing visors. Mara hissed softly. Stay behind me. Alex almost protested, but something in her tone, ancient and commanding, rooted him in place. The first purifier dropped through the opening, landing with a metallic thud. His armor gleamed chrome white under the candlelight. His voice filtered through static. Target identified. Mara Valen. You are under arrest for violation of the Neon Accord, unauthorized feeding and biological concealment. Still quoting laws from people who sold their souls to algorithms, she said coldly. How quaint. 2 more dropped beside him, weapons drawn, guns that hummed with blue plasma. Alex's pulse quickened. Mara. She didn't answer. In a blur of movement, she was gone from his side. And then suddenly, behind the first purifier, her hand plunging into his chest like a blade. Sparks erupted as she ripped free something that looked like a glowing core. The body crumpled instantly. The others opened fire. Bolts of plasma seared through the air, scorching the stone. Mara moved like a shadow given flesh, each flicker of her dress leaving afterimages in the smoke. She struck again and again, until only silence remained. Alex stood frozen, half terrified, half enthralled. When the last body hit the ground, Mara turned to him, her face spattered with glowing blue circuitry instead of blood. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes burned brighter than before. "You shouldn't have come tonight," she whispered. He took a shaky step forward. "If I hadn't, they'd have still come." She studied him for a long moment. Then her expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You really are a fool, Alex Monroe." "Yeah," he said, forcing a smile. "But I'm your fool now, right?" Her lips twitched, caught between amusement and disbelief. "Careful what you wish for." Then, for the first time since he'd met her, Mara looked uncertain. She reached out, placing her cold hand over his heart. "Your pulse is slower than it should be." "Probably adrenaline," he said. She shook her head. "No, it's the coffin. It's still speaking to you." "What do you mean?" Her eyes lifted to his. "It's asking a question." "What question?" "If you'd stay." Alex felt a chill run through him, not fear, but something more profound. Something that made the idea of leaving her seem impossible. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because deep in his chest, beneath his slowing heartbeat, something else was whispering back. Something ancient and alive. Pulsing with dark promise, and Mara smiled as if she could hear it too. The world outside the chamber felt distant, like a half-remembered dream. When Alex finally followed Mara up the staircase, his body felt heavier and lighter at the same time. His limbs tingled. His vision hummed with strange clarity. Every drop of water falling from the ceiling looked like liquid glass. He could hear the faint buzz of neon signs miles above, the whisper of city drones slicing through the smog. It was as though the coffin had tuned him into another frequency of existence. Mara walked ahead of him, the hem of her dress whispering across each step. The air in the upper apartment shimmered with candlelight and rain scent. She spoke without turning around. "You're hearing the city, aren't you?" He hesitated. "I think so." "Everything sounds alive, so that's the first sign." "Of what?" She faced him then, her eyes soft but searching. "Of crossing," he swallowed. "Crossing what?" "The boundary between heartbeat and hunger." He wanted to laugh it off, make another sarcastic comment about vampire dating apps and bad wine, but something in her tone froze the words in his throat. Mara moved toward the window. Outside, the skyline of neon District 9 flickered like a dying circuit board. Humans built towers so tall they forgot to look at the stars. Now their gods live in algorithms and their fears are bottled in pills. "But you?" She turned to him. "You felt the coffin breathe, didn't you?" Alex's pulse quickened. "I thought that was me panicking." "No, that was it recognizing you." He shook his head slowly. "What does that even mean?" She approached him, her presence both magnetic and terrifying. "The coffin only opens for two kinds of souls, those already dying, and those strong enough to survive eternity. So which one am I?" "That," she said with a small, sad smile, "depends on what you do next." For a long time, silence ruled the room. Rain streaked the glass, and the neon reflections painted their faces in shades of crimson and violet. Then Alex noticed something strange. The scent of rain was changing, becoming sharper, almost metallic. His throat burned dry and electric. He blinked hard. The candles around them flared brighter for an instant, then steadied again. Mara's eyes darkened. "It's starting." He touched his neck instinctively. "What's starting?" "The hunger." He laughed nervously, but his laugh broke halfway. "You're kidding. Tell me what you feel." He hesitated. "My heartbeat's slowing, but I can hear yours." "Where?" "Everywhere." He exhaled shakily. "It's music." Her expression softened with something almost like pity. "You shouldn't have stayed in the coffin so long." "I didn't have a choice," he whispered. "Maybe you did," she murmured, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Maybe you wanted to feel what I feel." Alex's mind blurred. Her voice wrapped around him like velvet. The air grew heavier, sweeter. He could smell her. Warm metal, ancient roses, storm-charged ozone. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, but his voice came out more like a confession than a warning. She tilted her head. "You couldn't. Even if you tried." The space between them vanished. When she kissed him, it wasn't gentle this time. It was desperate, consuming. His senses exploded. The sound of her pulse under her skin. The electricity racing through her fingertips. The faint, dizzying taste of something forbidden. For a heartbeat, he saw flashes, memories that weren't his. A ballroom in another century. A battlefield drenched in rain. A cathedral burning under a violet sky. He pulled back, gasping. What was that? Our memories are never separate when blood calls to blood, she whispered. You saw my past, and now? I can see your future, he searched her eyes. And what do you see? She hesitated, then whispered, You lying beside me, eyes open, heart silent, but not dead. He stepped back. No. Yes, she said quietly. The coffin chose you, Alex. I can't undo it. He ran a hand through his hair. So what now? I just become like you? It's not that simple. You can fight it for a while, but every night it will call louder. And if I don't fight, then you'll stop being afraid of the dark. A bitter laugh escaped him. I was never afraid, she smiled sadly. Then you were always halfway to me. Lightning flashed beyond the window. For a moment the whole city glowed white, and Alex saw his reflection beside hers. His eyes flashed red for a split second before returning to normal. He froze. Mara, I see it. Her voice trembled for the first time. It's too soon. Before he could respond, the walls around them shuddered. The neon lights outside flickered, then died entirely. The hum of the city fell silent. What's happening? Mara stiffened. They're cutting power to the sector. Purifiers never come alone. Alex moved toward the door. Then we run. No, she grabbed his wrist. They're hunting you now, too. You're marked by the coffin. Her words chilled him. What? Their sensors will read you as corrupted. You're not human to them anymore. Then what am I? She met his eyes. Mine. A low mechanical roar echoed from outside, the unmistakable whine of purifier dropships. Drones swarmed the skyline like steel locusts, their spotlights slicing through the rain. Mara turned toward him. Downstairs now, they raced back down the staircase. The chamber below had changed, its runes pulsing faster, reacting to the threat above. The coffin itself glowed faintly as if aware. Alex stopped at its edge. We can't just hide again. It's not hiding, she said, running her fingers across the symbols. It's fighting differently. The ground trembled as the building above shook from impact. Glass shattered somewhere far overhead. Mara, she turned, eyes blazing crimson. Inside. Trust me. He hesitated, then climbed back into the coffin. The fabric was warm this time, almost alive. She followed, lying beside him in the tight space. When their fingers touched, the lid slid shut on its own. The last sound he heard before darkness swallowed them was the shriek of metal collapsing and the hiss of plasma fire. Then everything stopped. No sound. No light. Just heartbeats, two of them merging into one rhythm. The runes burned brighter behind his eyelids, and for an instant, Alex understood. The coffin wasn't just a bed. It was a gate, and together they were crossing through. By the time Leon's mind began to process what was truly happening, he was already walking beside her through a corridor of obsidian glass. The hallway shimmered with refracted moonlight from the city skyline outside. Down below, the sprawling neon spire stretched endlessly, its towers glowing like jeweled stakes piercing a violet night. The rain had stopped, but vapor still rose from the wet roads, blurring the reflections of holograms. Seraphine's heels clicked softly on the crystalline floor, their echoes rippling like whispers of a bygone century. You dance, don't you? She asked suddenly without turning back. Her tone was half amusement, half challenge. Leon chuckled nervously. Dance? I've got decent moves when there's a hollow band and some bad decisions involved. She turned to him, her lips curling slightly, a glint of red light flickering across her eyes. Good, she murmured. Because tonight we honor the oldest promise my kind made to the living. One last waltz before the dawn. The doors ahead parted open, revealing a vast ballroom unlike anything Leon had seen before. It floated above the city like a suspended dream. Thousands of candles hovered in the air, defying gravity. Each flame burned a cold blue, illuminating marble statues, glass pillars, and crimson drapes. A mechanical orchestra waited silently on the far end, gears twitching like the clockwork hearts of ghosts. This is incredible, Leon breathed, his reflection shimmering across the floor. Seraphine extended her hand, her pale fingers glowing faintly under the azure lights. Then dance with me, she said. He hesitated. What if I step on your toes? Then I bite, she whispered, grinning. He laughed, but his pulse quickened. Her hand was cool, impossibly smooth, and when their fingers intertwined, something shifted in the air. The orchestra came alive, playing a hauntingly beautiful tune, strings and piano fusing with digital synths. It felt both ancient and futuristic, like the echo of a cathedral trapped inside a neon storm. They began to move. Her body guided his effortlessly, like silk caught in wind. Leon found himself following her rhythm, the world blurring around them. Time stretched. The city lights beyond the glass pulsed with each note, as if the whole skyline was keeping time with their steps. "You've done this before," she teased softly, spinning beneath his arm. "Never like this," he admitted. "Never with someone who looks like she stepped out of a dream." Her smile faltered just for an instant. "Dreams can be dangerous, Leon. They tend to bite back when you chase them." He caught her gaze, the humor fading. "Then let me dream anyway." For a moment, something warm flickered in her eyes, something ancient, fragile, human. She blinked, almost startled, and looked away. The music swelled faster now, and suddenly the candles shifted color, blue turning to deep red. The air thickened. A cold wind surged through the ballroom. Leon froze. Around them, the marble statues began to move. Cracks split their surfaces, revealing eyes glowing like molten silver. One by one, they turned their heads toward Seraphine. "You shouldn't have brought him here," one hissed, voice scraping like stone. Seraphine's grip tightened on Leon's hand. "He's mine," she said calmly. "By blood right? You forget the covenant," another growled. "Mortals aren't allowed past the veil." Leon's heart hammered. "Okay, I'm guessing this isn't a dance club rule." Seraphine stepped in front of him, her silhouette framed against the sea of glowing statues. "He came willingly, and his pulse sings to me. That's all the permission I need." The statues stirred, their wings unfolding with grinding roars. "Seraphine," Leon whispered. "What are they?" "Guardians of the old code," she said. "They protect us from ourselves, and from falling in love with what we shouldn't." Then one of them raised a sword made of obsidian glass and lunged. Leon barely saw it move. Seraphine blurred, faster than thought, intercepting the blade with her bare hand. Sparks erupted. The floor cracked. She twisted the weapon aside and drove her other hand into the statue's chest, shattering it into dust. The orchestra stopped. Silence fell, broken only by the echo of Leon's breath. The rest of the guardians stepped back, shadows flickering across their crumbling forms. One by one, they bowed their heads. Seraphine stood motionless, her dress torn slightly, a streak of black ichor trailing from her palm. She turned toward Leon, eyes glowing faintly red. "Now you see why I don't date," she said softly. He swallowed hard. I've had worse first dates. Once got attacked by a malfunctioning drone waiter." A laugh escaped her lips, a real one this time, warm and unguarded. "You're impossible." "Yeah," he said, stepping closer. "That's kind of my thing." She looked at him for a long time, the light from the broken statues casting shadows across her face. "You don't fear me?" "Should I?" "Yes," she whispered. "But I don't want you to." The orchestra restarted by itself, the melody gentler now. She took his hand again, and they resumed the waltz amid the ashes of stone guardians. Outside, lightning rolled across the horizon, painting the city in silver and crimson. Leon leaned close, his breath brushing against her ear. "You said one last waltz before the dawn. What happens after?" Her eyes lifted toward the windows where the first faint glow of morning traced the edges of the skyline. "We stop pretending," she said, "and we find out what you're truly made of." As the final note hung in the air, the world seemed to pulse once more. The glass beneath their feet shimmered, and the city below flickered like a simulation caught in a glitch. Leon blinked. "Seraphine, what's happening?" She stepped back, her face suddenly pale even for her. "They found us," she whispered. "Who?" "The ones who feed on us both." And then the ballroom shattered, exploding into a cascade of digital fragments that dissolved into darkness. When Leon's eyes fluttered open again, the ballroom was gone. The shimmering candles, the marble angels, even the air itself, all had collapsed into an electric void of black and violet static. It felt like falling through broken glass and memory at once. The world pulsed in and out of focus. He tried to move, but his body felt like it had been digitized, every atom vibrating between code and flesh. "Don't fight it," came Seraphine's voice, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "You're not supposed to be awake during the shift." Leon turned his head and found her standing on a platform of light suspended over an endless abyss. She was radiant even here, her crimson gown replaced by something darker, woven from threads of holographic blood and mist. Behind her, geometric symbols floated like constellations written in languages no human had ever seen. "Where are we?" he whispered. "The space between realities," she said softly. "My kind calls it the veil. It's what keeps the mortal world from drowning in the supernatural." He blinked, his voice barely steady. "So, we fell out of your ballroom and into another dimension?" Her lips twitched. "More like you fell into me." His brain struggled to catch up. "Wait, what?" Seraphine's smile was brief, almost sad. "You bled on the veil when it cracked. You didn't notice, but when I pulled you close during the fight, our blood mixed. You're bound to my frequency now." Leon stared at his hands. Thin lines of red light traced his veins like circuits under his skin. "So I'm, what, infected?" "Linked," she corrected. "Your life and mine are threaded together through the fold. If one of us dies before the dawn, the other fades too." He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "And you didn't think to mention that before asking me to dance?" Her eyes softened. "I didn't plan this. You weren't supposed to see what you saw." The air trembled again. Far off, shapes began to move through the mist. Humanoid silhouettes gliding across the void, their faces made of static. Leon felt their gaze before they even turned toward him. "What are those?" he asked. "Collectors," Seraphine said, her tone darkening. "They eat the echoes left by broken realities. If they reach us, they'll take everything we've ever been. Memories, emotions, even dreams." He backed away instinctively. "So basically cosmic soul vampires?" Her eyes flashed. "Exactly." The collectors began to circle, the static forming limbs and jagged teeth. The hum of their presence rattled the air. Seraphine extended her hand, crimson energy flaring from her palm. "Stay behind me," she commanded. Leon took a step forward instead. "I'm not letting you fight them alone." "Leon, you don't understand, but it was too late." One of the collectors lunged. Reflex took over. Leon raised his hand and something inside him answered. A surge of light erupted from his veins, crimson and gold. It struck the creature mid-air, tearing it apart like smoke under a hurricane. Both of them froze. Seraphine turned to him slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. "You shouldn't be able to do that." Leon blinked at his glowing arm. "Yeah, that makes two of us." He felt dizzy. The light faded and exhaustion hit him like a crash. He stumbled, nearly falling off the edge of the platform, but Seraphine caught him, her grip firm but trembling. "Your blood has adapted," she whispered. "The veil is rewriting your DNA. You're becoming something between human and—" She trailed off. "Vampire?" He finished weakly. "Not exactly. Something new. Something even I can't name." The collectors regrouped, dozens of them now, a swarm of whispering shadows. The void began to fracture beneath their feet, each crack glowing with molten code. Seraphine looked at him, truly looked. And in her eyes, Leon saw both fear and awe. "If you stay here much longer, the transformation will complete," she said. "You'll never be able to return to your world." He met her gaze. "And if I leave?" "Then you'll die before the sun rises. The tether between us won't hold." "Wow," he muttered. "So either I die, or turn into some kind of digital vampire hybrid?" A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "Now you understand why my dates rarely make it past midnight." He laughed, breathless and wild. "And yet here I am, still wanting dessert." Something flickered behind her eyes, an emotion she hadn't let surface for centuries. "You're either brave or stupid." "Little of both," he said. The swarm closed in, whispering in fragmented voices that sounded like corrupted prayers. Seraphine raised her hand again, but this time Leon stepped forward beside her. "Let me try something," he said. He closed his eyes. The hum in his veins deepened, syncing with hers. The red light spread through the air like a pulse, connecting them. For a moment he felt her heartbeat inside his chest, steady, ancient, lonely. Then their combined power flared outward, a storm of light that obliterated the void. When it faded, they were standing in silence. The collectors were gone. The space between worlds began to stabilize, the cracks sealing shut. Seraphine looked at him as though seeing a ghost. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Told you I had good moves." For the first time since he met her, she didn't smirk. She simply reached up and touched his face. Her hand trembled. "You shouldn't exist," she said softly. "And yet you do." Her voice broke slightly. "Leon, if the veil recognizes you as a bridge between our kinds, It might never let you go, he met her gaze. Then I guess I'm stuck with you. The faintest blush touched her cheeks. You don't understand what that means. You'd have to feed. You'd have to sleep in the dark, away from the world you knew. Leon exhaled slowly. And you'd have to live knowing you're not alone anymore. Doesn't sound too bad. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then she leaned in, so close he could feel the chill of her breath on his neck. You really want to know what that feels like? She whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Her lips brushed his skin, and in that instant the world disappeared again. But this time it wasn't void or chaos. It was warmth, memory, blood and light twining together like silk threads. It wasn't a bite of hunger. It was a bite of recognition, and when she finally pulled back, her eyes weren't crimson anymore. They were gold, mirroring his. When Leon opened his eyes again, he wasn't floating in a void or dancing on glass. He was lying in a small, dimly lit chamber, surrounded by red neon veins running across the metallic walls like capillaries of a giant heart. The hum of distant engines and muffled city noise seeped through the floor. He sat up slowly. The surface beneath him was smooth, cold, and curved. He blinked and realized he was inside a coffin, except this wasn't an ancient wooden box with silver hinges. It was sleek, obsidian black, covered with holographic inscriptions that pulsed faintly in time with his heartbeat. The lid above him glowed with faint crimson runes that faded as he touched them. "What the hell?" he whispered. A soft laugh echoed nearby. "I told you," came Seraphine's voice, gentle but teasing. "One day you'd wake up in my coffin." He turned. She was sitting cross-legged in a hovering chair of metal and velvet, sipping something from a glass that shimmered like molten ruby. Her golden eyes glowed in the half-dark, both regal and impossibly human. "Technically," Leon said, "I thought that was a metaphor." She smirked. "And yet here you are, alive mostly." He touched his chest. His heart was beating, but slower, deeper. The rhythm felt heavy, deliberate, as if the world had to wait between each pulse. "How long was I out?" 3 nights, she replied. "Long enough for your transformation to stabilize." He froze. "Transformation?" She rose gracefully, her movements almost weightless. "You're not human anymore, Leon. The veil rewrote your code to match mine. You are half blood, half current." He frowned. "Half what now?" "Blood, the life essence of the undead, and current, the digital energy that sustains this city's undernet. The veil fused both inside you." Leon ran his fingers over the coffin's edge. The runes glowed brighter at his touch. "So this thing, it's alive." "In a way," she said. "It's bonded to your signature. That coffin isn't for the dead, it's for the reborn." He stared at her. "I'm part of your world now." "Yes." Her tone softened. "But that world won't accept you easily. Hybrids aren't supposed to exist." He rubbed his temples, trying to breathe through the dizzy realization. "Great, so I'm basically a walking glitch." She tilted her head. "An anomaly. And in a city like this, anomalies are hunted. By who?" Her gaze darkened. "By the Order of the Pale Circuit. They police the barrier between humans and vampires. To them, you're proof the veil can be broken." Leon looked around the chamber, small but ornate, walls lined with ancient books, holographic maps, and a window that overlooked the neon sprawl outside. "Where are we?" "My sanctum," Seraphine said. "Hidden beneath old District 9. It's the only place where the Order's sensors can't reach." He walked to the window. The view took his breath away. The city stretched for miles. Towering spires, holographic signs flickering in dozens of alien scripts, sky bridges thrumming with traffic. Drones zipped between levels, and below the streets glowed with holographic rain. It was like being inside a cathedral built of neon and shadow. "It's beautiful," he murmured. Seraphine came up beside him. "It's a graveyard," she said quietly. "Every light you see out there burns because something darker fuels it." Leon glanced at her. "You always this poetic before breakfast?" Her lips curved slightly. "Only when I haven't fed yet." He stepped back. Should I be worried?" "Relax." She set the glass aside. "I'm not hungry, for now." He grinned faintly. "That's comforting." But beneath the banter, tension lingered. The new world he had woken into pulsed with unfamiliar logic. Machines that breathed, streets that bled data, shadows that whispered. And now, something inside him was starting to answer those whispers. His veins began to hum again, faint circuits glowing beneath his skin. The runes on the coffin flickered in sync. Seraphine noticed instantly. "You're resonating," she said. "The veil is calling to you." "Calling?" he asked, frowning. She nodded. "Every being connected to the veil feels its pulse. But only hybrids can speak back." Leon looked at his glowing hands. "So I can control it?" "In theory," she said. "If you can survive the communion." "Sounds fun." She arched a brow. "It's not. You'll be speaking to the collective consciousness of every vampire that ever existed. Most minds that attempt it burn out in seconds." Leon smiled thinly. "Guess it's a good thing I'm too stubborn to quit." Before she could argue, he placed both palms on the coffin. The runes flared, crimson light flooding the room. The walls began to ripple as if turning liquid. Seraphine stepped back, her eyes widening. "Leon, stop!" she called, but he couldn't. The light engulfed him, pulling him into a vision. He saw flashes, ancient battles fought in shadow, cities burning under twin moons, 1,000 faces turning toward him in unison. Voices spoke in 100 dialects merging into one truth. "The bridge is open. The blood remembers," he gasped. Images poured into his mind, memories that weren't his. The first vampire born under lightning. The first human who loved one. The curse that divided their worlds. And then, a face. Seraphine, centuries younger, standing before a burning cathedral, her hands covered in ash. Her voice echoing through time. "If the veil ever cracks, let the next dawn belong to love, not fear." He fell back, gasping as the vision shattered. The glow faded. Seraphine rushed forward, catching him as he collapsed. "Leon, look at me." His eyes opened, now glowing faintly gold and red at once. "I saw you," he whispered. "In the past, you made the veil." She froze, her lips parted, but no sound came out. No one was supposed to know that. He looked at her, dazed but smiling weakly. "Guess your secret's safe with me." Her expression softened, then darkened again as alarms began to blare through the chamber. Red lights flooded the room. "What's happening?" he asked. "The order," she hissed. "They've found us." The window shattered. Drones poured in, sleek silver, their cores glowing blue. Behind them, armored figures descended from the ceiling, faces hidden behind digital masks. By decree of the Pale Circuit, a synthetic voice boomed. "Unauthorized hybrid detected. Eliminate both." Seraphine's fangs glinted as she stepped in front of Leon, eyes blazing gold. "Let them try." The sanctum erupted into chaos. Alarms screamed through the underground chamber as shards of glass rained down from the ceiling. The air shimmered with the electric pulse of the Pale Circuit's assault drones, their wings cutting the neon mist like razors. Seraphine moved first, fluid, precise, beautiful even in destruction. One flick of her wrist and the nearest drone exploded in a burst of black fire. Leon staggered upright, adrenaline surging through veins that no longer felt entirely his. His vision sharpened, colors deepened, the red lights of warning panels bloomed into fractal geometry, and every motion in the room left a faint afterimage, like echoes in reality itself. "Get behind me," Seraphine ordered. He shook his head, picking up a broken shard of metal from the floor. "We've been over this. I'm not the stay-behind type." Her gaze flashed gold. "You're still adjusting to the veil. If you push yourself now, it could burn you alive." Leon smirked faintly. "Guess we'll find out together." The drones swarmed in, sleek silver machines with cores that pulsed like beating hearts. Their mechanical wings unfolded and energy cannons flared with white-blue light. Seraphine vanished in a blur, appearing mid-air as her gown flared around her like a storm of shadows. She slammed into the first drone cluster, tearing through metal and code alike, every impact sending ripples through the neon-lit walls. Leon crouched low, the shard of metal vibrating in his hand as if alive. He could feel something beneath the surface, energy waiting to be shaped. He closed his eyes and thought about the pulse, the connection between him and Seraphine, between blood and current. When he opened his eyes again, the shard had transformed, its jagged edges reshaping into a blade of glowing crimson energy. "Okay," he breathed. "That's new," he charged forward. His movements were instinctive, guided not by thought but by the rhythm of the veil itself. The first drone fired. A beam of energy sliced through the air, but Leon deflected it with his blade, the impact creating a shockwave that threw sparks across the chamber. Seraphine landed beside him, glancing briefly at the weapon in his hand. You're adapting faster than I expected. Guess I'm a quick learner, he said, slashing through another drone, or a reckless fool. Probably both. The two of them fought side by side, a blur of crimson and silver, blood and lightning weaving together like a deadly symphony. Every time Seraphine struck, Leon's blade followed, amplifying her power, syncing with her rhythm as though they were extensions of the same heartbeat. But the Order's forces kept coming. The drones split open, releasing armored soldiers, humans enhanced with cybernetic implants, their faces hidden behind silver masks marked with the insignia of the Pale Circuit. They moved like machines, coordinated and ruthless. The leader stepped forward, a tall figure in white armor with glowing veins of blue running down his arms. His voice carried through the chaos like a blade slicing through silk. Seraphine Noctra, last of the Crimson Architects. Surrender the hybrid and you may keep your own life. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Still clinging to your outdated creed, I see. You've broken the covenant, the leader said coldly. And the Veil has spoken. Hybrids are an abomination. Leon stepped forward, the energy around his body flickering brighter. You say that like you're not part machine yourself. The leader's mask turned toward him. Technology is pure logic. Blood is chaos. You are neither. Then maybe I'm exactly what this world needs, Leon snapped. The leader raised his arm, and the entire chamber pulsed as if struck by thunder. The runes carved into the walls flickered and died. Seraphine staggered, clutching her chest as a wave of energy surged through her. They're using null fields, she gasped. It severs our connection to the Veil. Leon felt it too. A sudden emptiness, like someone had ripped a piece of him away. The hum in his veins went silent. His blade flickered and began to dissolve. The leader advanced, his steps slow, deliberate. Without your curse, you are nothing. Leon clenched his fists, rage building. He looked at Seraphine, pale, trembling, but defiant. And something inside him snapped. No. He closed his eyes and reached inward, deeper than the Veil, deeper than anything human or vampire. There, beneath the silence, he felt something else, a core of light that wasn't given to him. It was his. He seized it. The chamber erupted in crimson light. The null field shattered, the runes reigniting. Seraphine gasped as her strength surged back and the drones overloaded, collapsing mid-air like falling stars. Leon stood tall, his entire body glowing with interlaced patterns of red and gold. The leader raised his weapon, but Leon moved faster, crossing the space between them in a blur. He caught the blade mid-swing, twisted it, and drove his fist into the leader's chest. The impact sent a shockwave through the entire sanctum, blowing out the lights. When the dust settled, the leader lay motionless, his mask cracked. Beneath it, Leon saw a human face, old, scarred, eyes filled not with hatred but regret. You can't. Stop it, the man rasped. The Veil will collapse, and all worlds will burn. Leon frowned. What are you talking about? But the man's body flickered, breaking apart into digital ash. The silence that followed was heavy. Seraphine approached him slowly. Her voice trembled almost imperceptibly. Leon, what you just did, it shouldn't be possible. He turned to her. You said that before. This is different, she said. You didn't just break their weapon. You overrode the Veil's own law, he blinked. Meaning? Meaning. She looked up at him, awe and fear mingling in her eyes. You're no longer bound by either world, he laughed weakly. So what? I'm free? No, she said quietly. You're becoming something that even the Veil will fear. Before he could respond, the entire sanctum shuddered violently. The walls began to split, neon light bleeding through the cracks. Above, the city trembled. What now? He shouted. Seraphine turned toward the window where the skyline flickered like a dying heartbeat. The Veil's collapsing, she whispered. Your awakening woke it up. The city screamed, lights bursting, sirens howling. Leon grabbed her hand. Then we fix it, together. She stared at him, the chaos reflected in her golden eyes. You don't understand. To fix the Veil, one of us has to die. He hesitated only a moment before answering. Then it won't be you. The undercity of New Elysium was a graveyard of forgotten light. Beneath the neon streets, the world bled into darkness. Dripping pipes, rusted railways, and tunnels carved centuries ago, when the first vampires still ruled openly. The air smelled of dust and code, a mixture of oil, iron, and the faint sweetness of synthetic blood that humans used as perfume. Ethan followed Lysandra down a spiral of crumbling stairs. She didn't speak and he didn't ask. He could feel something different about her, a tension she didn't want to admit. For the first time, she looked uncertain. They stopped in front of a massive steel door half sunk in the rock. Strange symbols were etched across its surface. Not letters, but something older, more alive. They glowed faintly when Lysandra touched them, like veins remembering their pulse. The metal shifted open with a sound like an exhale. Inside was a chamber unlike anything Ethan had seen before. It wasn't ancient. It was both old and impossibly new, a fusion of vampire crypt and biotech lab. Transparent tubes ran along the walls carrying liquid light instead of blood, and in the center of the room lay a coffin, suspended in midair, rotating slowly under beams of blue energy. Lysandra stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "This," she whispered, "is where it all began." Ethan circled the coffin cautiously. The surface was smooth black stone, not carved but grown. "What is it?" She glanced at him. "It's not a what. It's a who." The answer hung in the air, chilling and magnetic. Ethan felt the faint hum of the coffin through his bones, like a heart beating in another world. "You mean someone's inside?" "Yes," her voice trembled. "My first love. My last mistake." For a long time, Ethan said nothing. He just stared at the dark surface, trying to understand the emotion behind her words. There was pain, yes, but also guilt. Ancient, heavy guilt. Lysandra approached the coffin and placed her palm on it. "His name was Kale. He was human, centuries ago when the world was still made of stone and silence. I thought I could love him without turning him. I was wrong." Her eyes softened. "He died trying to protect me. And before the council could burn him, I preserved him. I sealed him in this coffin. I swore I'd never open it again." Ethan swallowed hard. "And now?" "Now," she said. "The bond I made with you has awakened him." The lights around the room flickered. The air grew heavier, charged with static. The coffin pulsed once, faintly, as though something inside it had heard its name after 1,000 years. Ethan felt a tremor beneath his feet. "Wait, are you saying—" "Yes," she whispered. "He's waking up." A crack split down the center of the coffin. Steam hissed out like breath after a long sleep. Inside, shadows moved, slow, deliberate, aware. Lysandra took a step back, her hands trembling despite herself. "This isn't supposed to happen." "Not now." The coffin's lid opened. Inside lay a man, pale as moonlight, with hair black as void and eyes that glowed faint crimson even before they opened. His chest rose, slow and deliberate, and the entire chamber seemed to bow to him. When he spoke, his voice was calm, ancient, and terrifyingly gentle. "Lysandra," he said, "you kept me waiting." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between them. "Who the hell are you?" The man's gaze shifted to him, curious, faintly amused. "Her new mistake, I suppose." Lysandra finally found her voice. "Kale, please, don't do this." He sat up, the blue energy curling around his form like smoke. "You bonded again," he said quietly. "With another human." "It's not what you think," she said, voice breaking. He smiled, and it was a beautiful, terrifying smile. "It's exactly what I think. You broke your vow. You bound your soul to another mortal. You broke eternity for me." Ethan felt the air temperature drop. Shadows gathered around Kale like wolves. Lysandra moved closer to Ethan, whispering, "He's not alive. He's the first of us. The pure blood. If he rises, the city burns." Kale's eyes flicked to Ethan again, studying him. "You smell of her blood," he said. "Interesting. You're not vampire. Not human either. A child born of arrogance and love." "Yeah," Ethan said, "and I'm done being someone's mistake." Kyle laughed softly. "You'll be dust before you finish that sentence." He raised his hand, and the air exploded. The walls cracked, machines screamed, and Ethan was hurled across the room. He hit the wall hard, pain radiating through every bone. Lysandra darted forward, claws out, but Kale caught her wrist midair, eyes glowing like twin suns. "You turned me into a memory," he said, voice trembling with something close to grief. "Now I'll turn you into one." Ethan forced himself to stand, his vision blurring. The veins in his arms lit up again, crimson light pulsing through them like a second heart. He looked at Lysandra, trapped, choking, her eyes silently begging him to run. But he didn't. He charged. Kale turned too late. Ethan's hand shot forward, grabbing the glowing coffin cable still attached to the ceiling. Energy surged through him, burning every nerve, but he didn't stop. He slammed the cable into Kale's chest. The explosion tore the chamber apart. When the light faded, smoke filled the room. Kale was gone, vanished, dissolved into shadow. The coffin had shattered, its fragments floating midair like glass dust. Ethan fell to his knees, his body shaking. Lysandra rushed to him, cradling him in her arms. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have died." He smiled faintly, blood at his lips. "You said once love's a curse, right?" "I guess I'm learning." She laughed through tears, holding him closer. "You're a fool, Ethan." "Yeah," he said weakly. "But I'm your fool." Above them, the ceiling cracked open, a shaft of moonlight cutting through the dark. It touched Ethan's face, painting him in silver. For a second, his reflection looked almost divine. Lysandra looked up at the ruin around them, the broken coffin, the dying lights, the faint hum of their bond. "He's not dead," she said quietly. "Kale never dies. He'll come back." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Then we'll be ready." In that moment, the air went still, no longer heavy with fear, but filled with something quieter, warmer. A promise unspoken but real. Somewhere far above, the city lights flickered back to life. The city was quieter that night, as if every hologram, every billboard, every synthetic breeze had stopped to hold its breath. The spires of New Elysium glowed faint red, echoing the hue of vampire veins under blacklight. Ethan stood at the balcony of Lysandra's tower, the same place where he had first met her, though back then he had been nervous, mortal, and utterly naive. Now something within him was changing. The bite she had given him days ago had not healed. Instead, faint filigrees of crimson light ran beneath his skin, pulsing in rhythm with his heart. He could hear things now. The soft thrum of distant bloodstreams, the static whisper of heartbeats from the streets below, and in the glass reflection his eyes occasionally shimmered like hers, luminous, crimson, ancient. Lysandra approached from behind, her shadow sliding across the floor before she did. She was dressed in something human this time, a loose silk coat that caught the neon glow and turned it into faint galaxies. "You're fighting it," she said softly, her voice both tender and knowing. "I don't want to lose myself," Ethan murmured. "I'm not supposed to be like you." She smiled sadly, stepping close enough that her breath brushed his ear. "Then why did you stay? Why didn't you run when I told you to?" He turned to face her, and for the first time she looked uncertain. "Because I thought I could handle a vampire date," he said, half smirking. "And now, I can't imagine leaving." That small admission broke something in her. She looked away, biting her lip as if it were a wound she didn't want to reopen. "You don't understand what this means," she whispered. "You drank from me. I drank from you. That is not a date, Ethan. That is a bond, ancient, irreversible. Our bloods remember each other now. Even death won't unmake it." He took a step closer. "Then don't unmake it." For a long, fragile moment, she searched his face, perhaps hoping to find fear or regret. There was none, only warmth, and maybe a touch of foolish devotion. "You would give up your sunrise for me?" she asked. He nodded. "You've already stolen it." Her laugh was soft and broken, the kind that ends in tears. She placed her hand against his chest, right where his heartbeat faltered. "Then kneel," she said quietly. "Not as a servant, but as my equal." He did. Lysandra bit into her wrist, and the air filled with the faint electric scent of iron and ozone. She offered it to him, her voice trembling with the gravity of it. "Drink, and finish what we began." Ethan hesitated only for a second before his lips touched her skin. Her blood was light and lightning in memory, thousands of years of hunger, loss and beauty pouring into him like a river of stars. The city outside seemed to shudder. Drones fell from the sky. Lights flickered, alarms wailed, as if the world couldn't comprehend what was being born. When he opened his eyes again, he was no longer human. Not entirely. His senses stretched for miles. His pulse slowed to a steady, calm rhythm that echoed with hers. The bond was sealed. Lysandra knelt beside him, resting her forehead against his. "Welcome to eternity, my love," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Eternity's overrated," he said. "But this feels right." They stayed like that for a while. neon rain tapping against the windows, the hum of the city rising like a heartbeat beneath them. Somewhere far below, the world continued turning, oblivious that in one high tower, love had rewritten the oldest law of the undead. But there was still a shadow in the distance, one that neither of them could ignore. The council would not allow this bond. A human-turned hybrid bonded by will, not ritual. It threatened the order they had enforced for millennia. Lysandra sensed it before the first thunderclap. "They're coming," she said quietly. "The Blood Keepers, the council's hounds." Ethan stood, the faint light in his eyes now steady and fierce. "Then we'll handle them together." She smiled, sharp, proud, and a little terrified. "You really don't know how to quit, do you?" He grinned. "Not when I'm already dead." And as the tower shook under the first impact and explosions of red lightning lighting up the skyline, they turned together to face the night. The storm over New Elysium was the color of blood and neon. Thunder crawled like iron serpents through the glass towers, while below the streets burned in blue fire. The Blood Keepers had arrived, cloaked in crimson armor, eyes glowing with the cold fury of ancient laws. Each step they took sent ripples through the air, reality itself bending around their power. Lysandra stood at the edge of her shattered balcony, her hair whipping like black silk in the wind, her fangs faintly visible under the lightning. Ethan stood beside her, the faint trace of humanity still in his scent, though his eyes now burned red, a perfect echo of hers. "They'll kill you," she said softly. "You broke their oldest commandment. A vampire's blood shall never bond willingly with a mortal." He took her hand, his grip firm. "Then we break another. Let's survive together." A faint smile crossed her lips, and proud and sorrowful. "You talk like a fool," she said. He smirked. "Maybe, but I'm your fool." Then the attack began. The Blood Keepers moved faster than sound, red flashes darting through the air, slicing through concrete and glass. Ethan barely saw the first strike before he blocked it with sheer instinct, his veins igniting with borrowed strength. The impact sent shockwaves down the tower, neon shards scattering like falling stars. Lysandra joined him in motion, a blur of black and silver. Her claws sliced through armored bodies, her movements both brutal and beautiful. Every time Ethan stumbled, she was there. Every time she faltered, he shielded her. It was a dance and a violent waltz between love and death. But the Blood Keepers were endless. For every one that fell, two more emerged from the smoke. Drones descended from the skies, firing ultraviolet bursts that seared through the rain. Ethan gritted his teeth, catching a drone midair and hurling it into the street below. The explosion painted the skyline purple. He turned and froze. Lysandra had been hit. A silver stake protruded from her side, glowing with an ancient curse that ate through her blood like fire. She fell to one knee, clutching the wound, her body trembling. "Lysandra!" Ethan roared, cutting down the attacker with a feral rage that didn't feel human. She tried to speak, her voice a whisper through the storm. "You have to run. The bond will draw them to you. It's me they want, not—" He grabbed her face, his expression fierce. "Don't say it. We started this together. We end it together." And then something changed. The bond, that thread of blood between them, began to pulse. Their hearts aligned. The glow beneath Ethan's skin brightened until it matched the lightning itself. He could feel her pain, her fading strength. And he did what no one in vampire history had dared. He shared his blood back. The axe sent a wave of energy through the city. Lights shattered. Towers flickered. Time itself seemed to slow. The Blood Keepers froze mid-strike, their eyes wide as the impossible unfolded. A hybrid reversing the blood flow of an ancient vampire. Lysandra gasped, the curse burning away, her wounds sealing under his touch. When she opened her eyes again, the red was gone. In its place glowed gold in the color of dawn. Something new had been born between them, something beyond vampire and human. Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess we just broke evolution." Lysandra's laughter was soft, shaken, and beautiful. "You stupid, beautiful fool." But the city was collapsing. The council's citadel above them cracked open, raining down debris like meteors. The Blood Keepers dissolved into ash, undone by the very energy they had come to destroy. And in the chaos, Ethan's body began to fade, the bond consuming him from within. "No," Lysandra screamed, pulling him into her arms. His skin was cold, his breath shallow. "It's okay," he whispered. Looks like I wasn't built for forever. She held him close, her tears hot against his fading skin. You promised me eternity. I did, he said softly, his smile faint. And I meant it. You just have to find me again, next sunrise. His voice faded with the storm. When the city finally quieted, the tower stood in ruins, but deep beneath it, in a dark marble chamber untouched by the light, Lysandra lay beside a black coffin. She opened it, placed Ethan's body inside, and climbed in after him. Her hand rested over his heart, her face calm despite the ache in her chest. Sleep, she whispered. And when the world rebuilds, I'll wake you. No one escapes a vampire date, remember? The lid closed, centuries passed. The neon faded. The towers turned to dust. But somewhere beneath layers of stone and time, the coffin still waited, humming faintly with the sound of two heartbeats perfectly in sync. And one night, when the moon rose red again, the lid shifted. A faint hand emerged, pale, strong, trembling with life. Then another smaller hand covered it. A familiar laugh filled the dark. I told you, she said softly, smiling in the dark. You're never leaving that date. The two figures stood, reborn, eternal, their silhouettes framed against a world reborn in crimson light. And in the distant reflection of broken glass, the city blinked back to life, as if even New Elysium itself remembered their story.